And interestingly, I didn't even realize this even after I became a high performance coach. Even after focusing on this stuff, it hit me when I was going through a time where I was struggling in my business, where I was struggling in my relationship with my wife. I was struggling to keep up with my family, with my community, so many things. And I found myself waking up every day drained. And when I say drained, physically I was fine. I could do a lot of things, but I just couldn't get myself to do a lot of things. So the way my days looked like was I was forcing myself to go to do this thing, that thing, or the other thing. Hey, I have to do something about this business. But a lot of it was looping thoughts going through my head. In reality, if you watched me from outside, well, what it would look like is me just like circling around the same thoughts, going through these negative patterns of emotions, not feeling connected, not feeling fulfilled a lot of times, and keep losing sight of my purpose. So it was a very heavy time when I think back to it. And even though I studied this stuff mentally, but at a deeper level, I hadn't actually quite understood how this stuff was affecting me. And I want to go into that a little bit as we work through this. And I want to talk about the energy with the big E. And I'll start with a couple of things here. Myra just joined us too. A couple of things around energy. First of all, why is energy important? So you guys if you go into the success world, all people talk about is time management. How can you become more productive? How can you become efficient with your time? I can tell you, you can become the most efficient person with your time, but it's what you do in that time that's more important than the time management itself. If you're just setting up all kinds of tools and calendar systems and everything, but when you're within it, the quality is lacking, it won't matter how much time you have. It really won't matter. And I've heard this over and over. Like there most people who are busy will say that they're always busy, they're productive, this and that, but nothing is moving forward. But when you actually look at it from outside, they're not productive because they're very busy with all sorts of activities, but there's no clarity, there's no momentum, there's no purpose that they're clear on, there's no fulfillment or sense of fulfillment, there's no joy around the things that they're doing. So nothing is actually moving forward, or it's moving forward very, very slowly. And when you look at the world around you, like I can pretty much usually, when I talk to especially like people in the corporate world or people who are transitioning out of corporate world into becoming business owners or entrepreneurs, or even many entrepreneurs who create a job for themselves when they create a business, what I find is that when they talk about their day-to-day life, their life feels like a burden. It feels like they're kind of dragging themselves through. And if you look at most people around the world, that's, especially in the civilized, quote unquote, civilized world, that's the tone that you will hear. And the way it shows up in language is that I'm hustling. But in their experience, when you ask them what's happening, they're in survival mode. And it's really important to know that. And so what is the effect of that? The effect of that is that they are not creating the kind of life that they have ideally imagined in their mind. They're thinking that, hey, if they can just power through this project, if they can power through this period in their life, if they can be successful in this, everything that they had always dreamed of will come real. But that's a false promise, if there was any. And the reason it's a false promise, for one thing, we've seen this done to death. Like, we're at a time in history that the industrial age has been around for a while now. the possibilities are unlimited. The problem is that we have lost track of what is truly important to us. And in the process, we've depleted ourselves. So how do we deplete? How does the depletion work? So I'll relate it with a visual. And I always whenever I talk to a high achieving person who has a lot of ambition, I'll ask them, like, let me give you a visual of this. People who are very ambitious, or they're high achieving in the sense that their personality goes towards that, they have a lot of energy, and I'll talk about where that energy comes from in a bit. But the problem is that if you imagine them as a bucket and there's water coming in, but there are holes in the bucket. They're always being constantly drained of that energy. That energy shows up in all sorts of forms: disconnection, relationship challenges, and disconnection could be yourself from the environment around you, a lack of belonging, lack of purpose, all sorts of things that could show up. And the way people say it is, "Oh, I'm stressed." But it's a cover word. They're not clear as to what is stressing them out. And if you go deep enough, you find that it's actually fear. And fear is draining a lot of their energy.